Hey everyone, before we start today, a quick update for you guys. We're making a few small changes to the podcast schedule. Instead of weekly episodes, we're moving to bi-weekly. And by doing that, we're hoping to create some original content and a few other formats that we're playing around with. So join us every other week for the Off Track podcast.
All right, so April, the best tournament in the world is coming up in a week and a half now, the Masters. I feel like with most people, like they love the Masters, but they don't appreciate how difficult Augusta National really is, right? And like it's shrouded behind this mystery of most people will never get to play it. Most people will never even get to visit it. They don't release what their like stimp meter readings are, although I remember hearing this story for one of the video games. I think it was maybe like Tiger Woods PGA. Obviously, they had to get it to roll as it would at Augusta. The green staff watching the video game simulations and be like, a little faster. Okay, that's close. But like they have the data in the background, right? So they figured it's running at like an 11 something on average, but they won't ever actually release the numbers. So I thought it would be interesting for us to do a little bit of, okay, we know an average amateur is never going to have a shot at Augusta, but what if the average amateur only started at 125 yards out? You have the same par. This is still your same first shot. Would a 12 handicap or an 8 handicap have a fighting chance if you only start at 125 yards out, right? Like how bad is Augusta National? And so I wanted to go hole by hole and hear your reactions on what you think would happen on some of these holes.
Yeah, before we go hole by hole, my initial gut reaction is, of course, I could win the Masters if I'm playing from 125 out, because I feel like there are holes where it is difficult 125 in. But there are also a lot of holes where all the danger is before 125. And also the fact that I am starting off my first shot when most are going to be hitting their second, if not their third shot from there, right? So my initial reaction is, yes, I am going to get my green jacket if I was allowed to start from 125 out. How do you feel about it? Just gut reaction.
I mean, my gut reaction is no, I still wouldn't be able to win. Cause I've said this so many times before, like around 125 and in is my weak spot. Like that is where I'm actually terrible at golf, or more terrible than everything else at golf. So I feel like if you're not hitting a lot of greens in regulation at Augusta, like there's so many penalty areas, right? And I'm not just talking about water or what, like the runoffs, and how difficult it is to get up and down from some of these collection areas. So right. If you're not making a green in regulation and 2 or 3 putting every single time, right? Like you're not really going to be that competitive, because the winning score at Augusta for the tournament over the last few years is what? Minus 11, minus 12, minus, right around there. So yeah. So my reaction is no, even if I got to start like 50 yards out from the green, I don't know that I would have a chance at winning the Masters.
What club are you hitting? If it's 125 out, what club do you think you are hitting in?
On average, knowing that Augusta does have a little bit of wind and there's some uphills and downhills, it's between my gap and my pitch, depending on how much hole it is. What are you hitting?
Yeah. So I think I could hit anything from a gap to a 9, but not a full 9, but like one of those like half swing, 3/4 swing 9s, depending on if I want to make sure that because there's a lot of short side dangers at Augusta. And so if there are holes where it is better to play long, I might actually just play a little longer. But yeah, if you look back at the winning scores, right? Rory was 11 under, Scotty 11 under, Jon Rahm 12 under. It's basically around there. You do have a few outliers. Let's take out the 2020 DJ win, because that was, it wasn't played in April, right? Because he scored 20 under. And so let's take that one out. Yeah, I think it averages around 10 under. 10 to 11 under is the winning score. So I would very much focus on scoring the par 5s. And there are 4 par 5s. And my goal is, and I'm also expecting to not score well on some par 3s. And then hoping that I break even on the par 4s by being able to get it around the green, maybe a few, green in regulation with one shot. And then from there, like scrambling the best I can to just make par. I think that would be my general strategy.
Yeah. I'm assuming that the par 4s hopefully I'm around even. I don't know. Like realistically for me, like with how difficult it would be, I'm probably going to have a few bogeys in there, like, on or miss chip and then still a 3 putt, right? Is kind of what I'm assuming. Maybe on the par fives, there's some scoring opportunities, right? Like a birdie here or there. I don't realistically, I don't think I'm getting an eagle. And then I agree with you that the par threes, because I think the defense holds up, even if you're at 125 yards and in, right? For most of the par threes at Augusta, I think they still defend themselves really well. So to me, I'm like, that's like bogey, double bogey territory because it almost plays as like a normal hole, but it's Augusta, right? So I'm like, look, that could get really ugly, really fast.
Yeah. How do you think you would deal with the crowd? And obviously we're not going to have a huge crowd other than certain holes, right?
Yeah.
Where they're just stationed there. But still, how do you think you would play with the crowd? Because the last podcast we talked about driving with an audience and if that would mess us up or not, right?
I'm sure that would mess me up a little bit. I don't know that would mess me up more than like just my yippiness messing me up. But no, it would mess me up because I get in my head like, oh my God, I'm going to skull this. And then it would just like mess with me. And then I feel like it would make it even worse. But you don't care, right? About people watching?
I don't care. But at that level, at master's level, I think it would.
Televised too, right? Like, so you have camera crews everywhere.
I think that would play an impact. And so because of that, I would probably have to give myself a bit of a penalty just because of that.
Okay. So here's how we'll do it then. Let's go hole by hole. Right. And I want to hear we'll talk about the hole a little bit, but I want to hear what you think realistically you'll get. Right.
Okay.
And then we'll tabulate them at the end. Right. And then we'll just do a straight multiplication by 4. And that's what we're shooting at the Masters.
All
and
right.
then we'll see if we're winning a green jacket or if we are never invited back on premises again.
Sounds good.
Okay, so number 1, tee olive, arguably the most terrifying first tee shot in all of golf. Not because it's that hard though, right? So I think with tee olive, it's a slight dogleg right, but there's that one bunker in the middle on the right. And if you can avoid that, it looks like there's a really good chance that your most pros are going to make par, right? So 125 out, I think you said is right past the bunker. So we take that out altogether.
Yeah. So this is the 6th hardest hole. And to carry the bunker is 325. And so there's not a lot of people that are going to be where we are.
Right.
But they all have a better approach game than we do. So,
right. And most of them, it looks like, are, like you said, just short. Or the woods actually comes into play here too, right? Because it is a little bit of a corner, right? So we're 125 past the bunker, pretty much a straight shot with one major bunker guarding the green. But it is a multi-tiered green. I believe it has 3 tiers.
It has 3 tiers.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that in and of itself, not easy. So what do you think you're getting?
I like to think that I have a slight advantage on this hole, considering that we are hitting from the other side of that fairway bunker. But I think this is where nerves are going to hit me, being the first hole. And so if we were breaking this down round by round, I would say that I would think I'm birdieing this hole 2 out of 4 rounds. But since we're only doing 1 score, I'm going to say I'm going to par this hole because most of my misses are to the right anyways. I don't pull my shots. So that plays a role where the bunker doesn't really scare me. I'm just going to play it safe and play it to the right side of the green. I think the big thing is going to be if I'm on, can I 3-putt? And I'm fairly confident that if I play very defensively, that I could 3-putt even in Augusta greens and 3-tiered greens. I think the biggest challenge will be if I just for some reason miss it to the left. Like that's when I would start to like panic. And so overall, I think I'm going to score par over 4 rounds on this hole.
That's fair. I'm going to give myself a bogey because, and I'm just being very pragmatic. That 3-tiered green, like even if I get Gur, or sorry, even if I'm on the green and 1, right? I guess that's still a Gur, but from 125 out, I'm with you. The bunker doesn't scare me that much. The 3 tiers does, right? Because first hole, maybe I'm not as used to it. Maybe there's some nerves playing in. Yeah, you land on the wrong tier. And Augusta's pretty slick, right? Like there's a good chance that you're ending up off one of these runoffs. And the runoff on 1 isn't that bad, but you could still end up in a place where you're having to chip back on. So realistically, I would say I'm average. I'll give myself a bogey.
Okay. We probably should have talked about this in the beginning, but do we get practice rounds before the tournament? Because if we get practice rounds, I would be a lot more confident. If we are going in there blindly, obviously, the most iconic golf course. I know how it plays. I've played EA Tiger Woods PGA Tour since 2001. And so I feel like I know the course enough, but there's a difference, right, in experimenting with speed and things like that if you don't get a practice round. So let's just say that we get a practice round. We get the normal practice rounds that the competitors get. Because without it, my answer would change very drastically.
Okay, let's assume that we got a practice round.
Yeah. And one other question. Do we have a PGA caliber caddy?
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that you have to bring a caddy that you know personally. So if you have a PGA caliber friend, you are allowed to bring your PGA caliber friend. And what you explicitly do not get to do, just to keep this interesting, you do not get to use one of their local caddies.
Okay.
Right. Because I feel like that makes things like, at that point, it's not your skill. Well, it is still your skill, but they give you such a big advantage.
The one thing, though, the advantage that we do have is that this tournament, there's so much history in even just access to broadcast. There are some courses where you go to YouTube and you'll find a few clips, but there are full broadcast clips of the Masters going back years and years and years. So if we really wanted to do our homework, this is one of those courses where we can actually do our homework.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Should we go to the next hole?
So hole number 2, pink dogwood, par 5, dogleg left. Very similar in that there is a bunker that plays right around the danger area, right on the right side of the fairway. This is one where after you pass the turn, there's a lot of undulation. But the green, while being of this weird triangle shape, not the most difficult landing area and or recovery area from if you miss the green slightly. Our first par 5. So a big scoring opportunity for us.
125 yard. This is one of those holes where you bypass all of the danger. There are 2 bunker dangers in the front, but it is a very wide green for you to hit into. And so, yeah, this is the hole where I think we have a huge advantage.
Yeah, I would agree. So what are you scoring?
I think this is a birdie hole for me. Like I feel confident that I could get it in 4 strokes, because you have to think about it. You have 4 strokes to hit a birdie from 125 out. This is absolutely a birdie hole. Some on like maybe like 1 out of the 4 days, I might even argue that I can eagle this hole. And this is one of those holes where if I don't birdie, like it might mess with me a little bit for the next couple holes. But yeah, this is a must-have birdie.
Okay. I'm going to agree with you, especially because if you look at like the historical pin locations that they use on this hole, there's nothing really tucked in that front, right? So they tend to go for the fat of the green or the 2 other corners of the triangle, which can make for some very long putts. But I agree with you. Like a 1-on-3 putt doesn't seem unrealistic for this hole. So I'm actually going to take a birdie myself. All right. Moving on to hole number 3, a shortish par 4, 350 yards. This one is interesting because the landing area, or the I guess, what are we calling this? The intended landing area has those 4 bunkers. So if you're driving it well, if you're carrying that group of bunkers, you have a really good shot at making par or better. And the historical scoring average is just around par.
Yeah, but the one thing about this green is it is relatively flat for Augusta standards. And at 125 out, we would be hitting from just the other side of those fairway bunkers. So we would be just behind them. But this is another hole where I feel like I have a good chance. Again, the greens aren't intimidating. And even around the greens, there is that bunker to the left, but that's not a miss that I'm worried about. I think this is another birdie hole for me.
At this rate, you're going to win the Masters.
Well, see, this is why I think averaging it out is so tough, because I'm 8 under if I am birdieing these 2 holes for 4 days.
Right.
So, but don't worry, there's definitely going to be holes where I don't.
Yeah. For me, I think I'm at a par. I think I'm sitting at a par realistically. Like you said, there's nothing that crazy about the green, right? And that would be the thing that I'm worried about. And if we're taking those 4 bunkers out of play, then I don't think this is a big deal. Okay. Moving on to our first par 3. So hole number 4, flowering crabapple. This one is the 3rd hardest hole on the course. Not a lot of birdies. And it plays on average 240 yards. There is some elevation change, and it's a 2-tier green with 2 giant bunkers protecting it on the left and on the front right. The hole locations tend to be in the back, right? So not only is it a long hole, but you also have to carry it to the back of the green.
Yeah.
Stop it, and then score. What are you getting on this hole?
So this is a hole where I think I'm going to have my first bogey average.
Mm.
And the reason for that is so we would be teeing off just where the fairway starts up again.
Right.
And the fact that there are two bunkers and 125 only hits, like it hits in between the bunkers. And so to hit those pin locations, we would actually have to hit it farther. And so this actually ends up being like a 135 shot. And it's going to be difficult if you hit it too far, right?
Yeah.
So this is a hole where I think I'm going to have some trouble. I'm going to probably get on in two, and I'm going to two putt once I get on the green. And so I think that's where I think this is a bogey hole for me.
Yeah. And I think the danger here is really like you said, for the holes that are, or for the pin locations when they're on the second tier, right? The higher tier. If you hit it a little long and you're having to come back.
Yeah.
And you're off by a little bit, you're rolling off of that tier, right? Because if I remember correctly, that tier is relatively narrow compared to the full green. Right. So then you're ending up like somewhere back in the front of the green. Like hopefully you're not back in the bunker. But yeah, I feel the same. I'm definitely going to say that I have to take a bogey on this one. Yeah. It just doesn't feel like this is going to be easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Hole number 5, par 4, long par 4, 495 yards, fifth hardest hole. This one has a lot of danger subtly in the landing area because right around 278 to 300, those two bunkers on the left come into play. So for most touring pros, they have to contend with that. And so there's a lot of, and that's where dog legs left too, right? So if you hit it a little too far, a little right, you're in the trees. If you miss a little or you're short, you're in the trees again, or you're in those bunkers. So that's where I think a lot of the difficulty of this hole comes in.
Yeah, we bypass all the difficulty. It is, again, like kind of a two-level green. You could see it on the screen where the usual pin locations are, but it seems like most of it is actually right after the layer though, like at the upper level.
Close. They're close, to the tier. Yeah.
Yeah. So because of that, I think I'm going to likely par this hole.
Okay.
Yeah, because and this is one of those holes where I would probably play to be on the front of the green, and I am basically three putting my way to a par.
Yeah, because the thing we didn't talk about is like for 125, let's say you hit a full gap in, right, or even a pitch, you still have a fair amount of spin on that, right? So for these tiered greens, you might unintentionally like rip one back.
Yeah.
Off the green, especially if they're playing firm and fast, right? So I'm torn on this one. I think I can par. I'm with you. If you play to the front, think realistically, I'm gonna give myself a par on this one because I agree with you. This one, like 2-tier, I'm okay with that. 2-tier, no crazy bunkers, nothing crazy long, no crazy drop offs or runoffs. So I think this one's fine. To hole number 6, another par 3. It plays 180 yards and historically plays just over par. 3.14 strokes, so pi. The historical average on this hole is pi. Interestingly, the green looks relatively simple, but it's not. There's actually a lot of undulation on this one. There is one bunker protecting it. But for this hole, if you miss it by a little bit, the scoring average is actually still not great. Right? So the pros still have a lot of difficulty navigating this hole, even if they don't, or even if they're slightly off, right? So
yeah.
That I found to be actually really interesting about this hole. But what would you give yourself here?
Yeah, so I see this as a difficult hole because we're again just hitting where the fairway starts up again.
Yeah.
Or just slightly below it, just in front of the flowers to the right. That bunker in the front wouldn't allow me to play like a short shot, right? And so you kind of have to play a shot that is carrying it. And yeah, I don't think this is an easy green. I think this is another one where I'm going to give myself a bogey. Okay. I see myself getting into trouble and struggling on the green. And so, yeah, I think this is another bogey hole for me.
Yeah. I want to say that this is going to be a bogey, but honestly, I'm like struggling between do I give myself a bogey or a double bogey here? And not that I'm trying to intentionally penalize myself, but it seems like there's so much difficulty on if you miss this green a little bit. And realistically, my green in regulation from 125 out is not great. So I'm going to miss at some point. And so for this one, if I miss by a little bit, the chip on, so I'm lying 2, and then a 3 putt from all of these undulations, that's a 5. Like I just scored a 5 on this par 3. And that's assuming that I even get my chip even remotely close to what I'm trying to do. So to be fair, And to make this interesting, I will give myself a double bogey here
Okay.
because it seems like this is a difficult hole kind of all around.
Yeah.
Okay, hole 7, par 4, 450 yards, 10th hardest hole historically. This one is the tee shot is arguably the most important. The fairway is relatively narrow. Again, we get to surpass all of that danger.
Yes.
We're sitting very pretty on, where are we?
We're like halfway up those left side trees.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're in a zone where for the pros, if they landed there, they're hitting a 3 here.
Yes. It's a major birdie opportunity for most pros.
Yes.
That said, there's 5 bunkers on this hole.
Yeah. Yeah. Covering both the front and the back.
The front and the back. And it's narrow depth wise, right? It's not that deep. It's more wide than it is, which I feel like actually might bode well for me because it allows me to miss a little bit more left and right as long as I'm relatively accurate on my distance. But it is scary to see 5 bunkers surrounding a green as you're hitting into it. What are you thinking?
This is one of those holes where I want to say that I should be hitting a birdie, but those bunkers are a little intimidating. And so, like we talked about, if we spin a little bit too much, if we hit it a little bit too far, it's going to be tough. The green overall, other than the front right side of the green kind of going down, is relatively flat. And so I want to say birdie, but I think this is going to be a par hole. Like averaged out over four rounds.
Yeah. If you look at the scoring, the professionals for when they miss, right? This one is really interesting. They're scoring well on this hole because they're hitting the green.
Yes.
Right. So a little off and it actually turns into a 4.5 or a full 5 on average.
Yeah.
So very similar to the last hole where I think, the green in regulation accuracy is just that vital. That said, I'm going to give myself a bogey on this one. Because there's that little bowl, I don't think it's as bad as the previous one where I gave myself a double. But still, on average, I'm not going to always make it on. And it is going to be difficult if I'm not on.
Okay.
And then moving on to hole 8. So hole 8, we hit our second par 5. Long par 5, 570 yards.
Not long for us.
That's fair. Turns out 125 is not long from a lot of places. It looks relatively straightforward. It's like a slight dog at the end. There's a lot of trees protecting the hole once you get closer. But that's only, it only comes into play if you're a little wild. The thing about this green, though, is it is long and skinny the other way, right? So it's skinny and deep. And I think this one does have a little bit of hills and runoff around it. So it is a little bit protected from that way, right? So if you miss by a little bit, you might have a funky shot coming back into the green.
Yeah, they have a lot of mounds around the green. I mean, throughout the entire hole.
Yeah.
Considering this is a par 5, though, this is a birdie hole for me. I feel like from 125, even with the mounds there, I feel like I can hit relatively close to the green, chip on, and then 2-putt for birdie. And so because it is that par 5, I'm going to give myself a birdie on this hole.
Okay. I'm going to give myself a birdie too. Like, yes, it's skinny and that kind of, it puts accuracy at a premium left and right. But I don't know. The undulation, the mounds, it doesn't scare me as much.
Yeah, if you look at the screen and if you look at the 4 flag locations, the one on the top is the only one that I'm really worried about. The other 3, I think I feel confident because they're kind of in the middle of each tier. So yeah, definitely a birdie hole for me.
All right. And then we're at the end of the front 9. So hole number 9 is a par 4 Carolina Cherry, 460 yard par 4. 12th hardest hole on the course. This one is a very strong dog left. So there's a pretty big turn with trees protecting, so you can't just overpower this hole. I mean, not that most people can overpower this hole at 460 yards anyway. But again, we see a 3-tier green. Oh, this one might be a 4-tier green, actually. I think the front has like a false front or something. Like you can roll off the front.
Yeah.
So yes, this one has a false front. So this is like there's 3, and then if you're not careful, you're just coming back off the front of the green. So that I think does make it difficult. From where we're playing, I believe we have cleared the tree line, so we have a straight shot in.
Yes, we have cleared the tree lines. We're just on the other side of the tree lines. The one thing that I'm not sure though is I don't know if we're still at a decline or not, because this hole, the difficult part is that it declines, but you are hitting up to an elevated green. And so that's the challenge of this hole. So I don't know if we've passed that decline.
I believe the decline is still past the end of the trees.
Okay, so then we're on the decline.
Yeah. But for most pros, that's scoring territory. They're getting birdies and pars right around that area.
Yeah, for me, because it is a decline with an elevated green, I think this is realistically this is another one of those holes where I could see myself like hitting par, but like maybe hitting bogey a day or two.
Yeah.
But there was a hole previously where I thought I was going to birdie like 2 of the days, and I gave myself a par. So I'm going to say I'm going to score a par on this hole.
Okay. That's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah. The decline, the severe slope, the false front. I think my putting betrays me on this hole. Realistically, I think I'm hitting a bogey. I don't know if I have confidence issues, but I am not doing myself any favors on this round.
What's our score so far at the midway, at the turn?
So, at the turn, you are 1 under.
Okay.
And I am 4 over. So I need to pick it up a little bit. Okay. So we've made the turn to the famous hole number 10, Camellia. And this is the start of the stretch where there's like no spectators back here, right? We're starting to get into the part of the course where there's not a lot of people watching. Wide open fairway, turns slightly to the left, but not really. And I think this slopes down, if I remember correctly, right where the landing area is for most professionals, in towards that gnarly bunker. And then going into the green, we have a relatively straightforward 2-tier green. Nothing special except for that one bunker that's protecting it on the right. But not a lot of crazy runoff, but not a lot of scoring potential if you look at what the professionals are doing if they miss.
Yeah, we would be teeing off just behind those bunkers where it becomes a bit flatter.
Mm-hmm. So we have a lot easier shot in.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And if you look at the flag locations, they're mostly kind of at the heart of the green itself. There's a few days where it's on the backside. But
yeah. Here's the thing though. Number 10 is historically the hardest hole on the course.
It is.
The scoring average is 4.3.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, what would you give yourself?
Yeah. The one thing that's amazing about the Masters is like everything from their app to their website is just amazing. And if you look at their website right now on the putting side, it actually gives us a lot of info that there is actually a false front. And that is why, this becomes a little bit more of a difficult green, even though I think if you just look at the shape and, the different tiers and the levels, like it doesn't look that difficult. This is again, one of those holes where I feel like I'm going to be parring most of the days, but there's probably going to be a day where I hit bogey. So I'll give myself a par, but it's one of those where if there's a later hole where I think I'm going to birdie 1 or 2 days, like I'm still going to have to give myself a par on that hole.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I look at this and I'm like, I feel like I can par this. I feel like I can be on and 3-putt. But then I feel like if I'm off, like it's a bogey 2 or a double bogey, like immediately, because it's so narrow and that runoff goes into like you're contending with trees left and long. There's those bushes on the right. So to stay fair, I'll probably give myself a bogey.
Okay.
And then in the heart of Amen Corner, White Dogwood, long par 4, 520 yards. Arguably one of the more famous holes on the course. For the pros, they have to hit a long tee shot and then be able to hit it and stop it because there's danger from the green left and long. So I think that's where it starts getting very difficult because that second shot in tends to be very long for the professionals. Not for us.
Not for us. No. I guess it also depends on, because 125 yards is pretty wide. And so it depends on where, we get to hit our shot from. But let's just say it's like smack in the middle of the fairway, 125. This is one of those holes where I'm trying to tell myself that can you average a birdie? Because what I think I would do is I think I would aim at the bunkers and hit on the right side. And the green itself, right? Like there's a lot more room on the right side. Plus I tend to hit a fade. And so I'm not afraid of hitting the water. I'm never going to go for the flag in 1, right? But I think this is one of those holes where, yeah, like there is a chance. And there are days where the flag is just at the heart of the green.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the last hole, where I think there are a few days where I'm going to hit bogey, I'm going to say
Yeah.
I'm going to average a par. But this is one of those days where I feel like if I'm lucky on 2 of the days, I can actually hit birdie on this hole.
Yeah. So you're gonna give yourself par.
I'm going to give myself a par.
Contrary to you, I hit a draw naturally. So
Yeah.
I bring all of the danger into play. And then if I aim for the right and I leave it out there, I mean it's not that bad, right? But like my chipping, again, that's where I start getting into danger. And it's like real close to the edge, right? That green runs real close to that pond. I think realistically, like on average, I'm hitting a bogey here again. Just because I'm probably going to take a penalty one or 2 days, and that's easily, what is that, one? You know, you're dropping 2, hitting 3 from somewhere, right? And then maybe and 2 putting, then that's a bogey, right? So okay, I'll give myself a bogey. This is the worst round of my life, playing from 125 yards out. Okay, moving on to 12, arguably the most famous hole on the course. I think this is the most famous hole on the course, right? The par 3, 155 yards, plays a little over par, 4th most difficult hole on the course with the bridge. And I think this is where, what was it, the 2017 Masters or 16, where Jordan started his epic collapse, right? I think 12 was where he put like 1 or 2 in the water. So this one is notoriously hard. Bunker in the front, not a lot of opportunity to stop it, right? And pros are hitting 155, and even they struggle to land it and stop it on the screen.
I think even in 2019, when Tiger won, a lot of people hit it into the water. I remember just in that last group, like Tony Finau hit it into the water. I want to say Brooks Koepka hit it into the water. A lot of prominent golfers, especially on the 4th round, because the pin location is on the right side of the green, they hit it short and it just rolls back.
Yeah. And I believe on number 12, there's a lot of wind.
Yes.
A lot of wind plays into number 12. Oh, it's funny. If you look at the site, what you're showing now, 51% of the players hit the green in regulation. That's really low for 155 yards for pros.
Yeah. And we are only hitting it 30 yards in front of them. And so I think this is absolutely a bogey hole for me. On all 4 rounds, I am doing what I think Jack famously told Tiger to do, which is you just aim for that middle bunker and you just try to hit the middle of the green. You don't care where the flag is. And then from there, you just try to 2-putt for pros. My goal would be to just hit there. And then depending on the flag location, the pin location for the day, 3-putting from there.
Yeah.
Or getting into the bunker. My bunker play is generally good, and then 2-putting from there. So yeah, that's absolutely a bogey hole. Maybe double bogeying one day on this hole.
Yeah, that's what I was debating. Like, I mean, at a minimum, it's a bogey. I think it might be a double bogey for me. But I've been a little harsh on myself on some of these previous holes, so I'm gonna stick with a bogey. I do think there is an opportunity though that probably one of these days, even like you said, even if you follow Jack's advice, right, you might end up in a crazy location. And if you're a little long and if you're in one of those back bunkers, it's really hard coming back. Like it's so hard coming back. And so while I do think I will donate a ball into Rays Creek at some point, on average, I'm going to give myself a bogey.
Plus, this is the hole where you get that huge crowd behind you.
Yes.
Just watching you hit. And I think that's going to be definitely nerve-wracking.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. So hole 13, very severe dog left, a lot of movement in the fairway, right to left. This one, you come back over Rays Creek. The pros are generally hitting it right around where it turns. Oh, and then just very famously, this one is called Azalea. 125 puts us in a really safe area in terms of our approach shot. But this entire green, again, is very protected. It's a little stream that goes to Rays Creek surrounding this one, and it's got 4 bunkers in the back that you can't play along. And then this is where, like, the beauty of Augusta, right? The super manicured, it's polished, because if you don't hit it into one of those bunkers, you're in like a flower bed. So it's not like you have a lot of room there either. Very difficult green, slopes back, left, front, right. What are you giving yourself on this one?
Man, considering this is a par 5, I wonder if this is one of those holes where does it make sense to just hit it short?
No.
Because then you have
There's a creek surrounding.
I know. No. Like even shorter than that, and then you give yourself like a 30-yard chip shot, and then try to two putt from there,
Oh.
especially to the right side because the right side is flat.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you hit it right of the creek and then you have like a 25, 30-yard chip and then try to two putt for birdie because it is a par 5.
So that you don't end up.
Yeah. So you take kind of the danger out of it. I think that is what I would do.
For you, I could see that making sense.
Yeah, because then it ends up being, like a 100-yard shot. I would grab my sand wedge. I would do my half swing, my arm parallel swing. That'll get me, and I'm fairly accurate with that shot.
Mm-hmm.
I can get it to the right side, and from there, chip it on and two putt. Well, I'm waiting for you to talk me out of this or tell me that that's not a smart idea because you're supposed to be my caddy.
You're eating a stroke regardless at that point. So why not just go for, I mean, maybe this will change your calculation. This is the easiest hole on the course.
The visual of seeing those back bunkers along with all the flower beds that are there is playing some sort of like visual illusion to me. Because if you look at the image that's on screen right now, that's going to be our view. That's around, I think, 125 yards.
Mm-hmm.
It feels so protected that I think my fear is that I would hit it short and it would go into the creek. And so to take that out, I would rather just hit it to the right and then chip it on and then two putt for birdie.
Yeah, for you, I could see that making sense. For me, I would trust my full shot over my chip anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I miss, I'm missing. If I miss, I'm probably missing in the water. So then you just take a drop there and then I'm hitting 3 on. Yeah. And then try to two putt. And I don't think this green is that scary compared to the other greens that Augusta has. Right. So that's where I'm like, at worst, you're getting a par.
Yeah. And because of that, the fact that the green is not that difficult, I feel like even if I eat a stroke by playing conservatively, I could get it on and two putt. I think that makes sense for me. I'm going to give myself a birdie. I'm going to play it conservatively to the right, play like a 95, 100-yard shot, chip it onto the green and try to two putt my way to a birdie.
Okay. I'm going for it. I think I'm going to make it. I'm aiming at the right bunker, the rightmost bunker, right? So the right half of the green. Because of the slope, because I tend to hit a draw, right? I think I take most of the water out of play, right? So to your point, is there a chance I end up in the flower beds? Maybe, but I think more likely than not, I'm going to end up in that top left bunker if I miss. But again, I'm aiming at the right bunker, so I think I'm okay here. I'm going to give myself a par.
Okay.
Hole 14. Par 4, 440 yards. There is tiers to this green, and there's a lot of movement on this green, right? So there's this weird like undulating terraced thing with little bowls. So this one is not fun at all from a putting perspective. What do you think you're getting here?
I think I'm getting a par on this hole without knowing the course, right? When you just look at like the digital images, or you just think there's nothing protecting this hole, but the green itself is the protection. And so for us, I feel like even if I actually feel confident that I can maybe like hit the green, but what's going to happen once it lands on the green, right? Because it's very wide.
Yeah.
And like I feel like this is a very challenging green. And because of that, I think it's likely that I'm going to probably par this hole.
Yeah. I'm going to also give myself a par, but from the opposite logic as you, right? Where my worry is usually, am I hitting the green? So I think this one, like you said, if I miss by a little bit, I don't think the protection around the green is necessarily going to give me that much trouble. It's the green itself. But I feel fairly confident that if I'm on the green, I'm going to be able to three putt this one. Just because there's no like major scary things.
And the one thing that's interesting about the flag location, the pin location, is you're either hitting it to the left or you're hitting it to the right. It's never in the middle.
Right.
And so you kind of have to like split the green into two. And on 2 of the days, you're hitting towards the trees. And on the other 2 days, it's a little bit safer. Well, at least for me, because I'm hitting a fade, right? It's a little bit safer when it's on the right side.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to 15. 15 is a par 5, 550 yards. Again, not long at all for us. Second easiest hole on the course. Reachable, although it is protected by a pond in front of the green. Once you're there, it's a 2-tier green or 2.5-tier green, but not crazy protection other than the pond itself and that one bunker to the right, which I don't think really plays much of a difference here.
I think this is definitely one of those like pressure holes where I have to hit birdie if I want to win the Masters. I think I would just play this one a little bit longer, and I would play for the backside. If it rolls off, that's fine. I am going to give myself a birdie on this hole. I think you play long, you chip it on, you two putt. I feel like this is one of those holes where, depending on the pin location and depending on the day, like I should be able to eagle this hole once.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
if you get
it's not that long. Yeah.
if you get on the green itself, I'm pretty confident that I can like two putt my way to an eagle.
Right.
So birdie, absolutely a birdie hole.
I'm with you. For me, I think this is very easily a birdie because if you play a little long, again, the lake doesn't come into play at all, right? Or the pond. And I don't think it's that hard coming back on this one. So for sure, a birdie for me too. Okay. And then on 16, Redbud. A lot of subtle slope on this green, but if you look at it, it's not that difficult unless the pin is playing like the traditional Sunday location where it's protected by the bunkers, very hard to get to. But we can't really play from 125 out because then we're playing from the lake.
You can. You would just be on the right side of the lake.
Yeah. Okay. If you're playing from the right side of the lake, then that changes the hole altogether. What do you think you're getting though?
Man, this is a hole where I feel like I know the green so well because
you watched it so many times.
Because I've watched it so many times. I know depending on where it lands, kind of even where the landing spot has to be. I really want to say that I can par this hole just because of the familiarity I have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why there is a hesitation though, that I might have some trouble on one, maybe two of the days, depending on the pin location.
That's fair.
So yeah, this is one of those like 1.5 holes. To give myself a shot, I'm going to say I'm going to par this one. But to our listeners, I have hesitation on this hole that I might be in trouble half the rounds.
Yeah.
But for our game's sake, because it's an average, let's just say I'm going to par this hole.
If we play from 125 out, the green actually changes shape because we've had to move so far to not be in the pond that it actually looks different. It's actually more of a straight, like that front right bunker is actually just a front bunker.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to say that I can par this on average from there because even if you have that traditional Sunday location tucked behind the left bunker, you just go for the center of the green and then the slope will take it. Right. And then that split to the top right location is actually more like down the middle. It's not like you have to be so accurate to get it into like a corner. At this point, I'm not in contention anyway, so I'm just going to give myself the par. Okay. 17. Par 4, 450 yards. Just about in the middle of the pack in terms of difficulty of hole. A relatively narrow tee shot compared to what we've seen, but a more straightforward green. Not easy by any stretch, but a more straightforward green. Has some undulation and two bunkers protecting it from the front. But from 125, we would get a pretty easy shot in with a little bit of elevation change, but not crazy, not significant. What are you getting?
Yeah, I think this is a par hole for me because the green itself is not difficult, but around it is challenging. Those two bunkers in the front, I feel like even if you miss the center a little bit, there is a chance that it's going to roll off either to the sides or even to the back. I remember in 17, quite a bit of shots going to the back of the green. And so because of that, going to the back and then rolling off. So because of that, I think this is going to be a par hole for me where, I'm going to run into a little bit of challenges here and there. And so I'm going to have to chip it on and hopefully two putt for par.
Yeah, this is the hole that I think of when think about like the runoff and the players having trouble coming back on.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like if you're a little long, on average, they're only making par like half the time or something like that.
Yeah. If you watch the image on the screen, you see the slope on every side of the green.
Yes.
So unless you're on, this becomes it's a pretty challenging hole.
Yeah. I think to be fair, I have to give myself a bogey here again, because again, on the assumption that I'm going to miss a little bit more, I think it's just really hard coming back. I think there's just this like base assumption that like two putting is like great here, right? So it's like up and three putt is probably more what's going to happen, in which case I'm playing for bogey.
What's my score right now?
You're 2 under.
Okay. For the game's sake and to make it a little bit interesting, this final hole, let's just say I par, but I agree with you. I think there is a good chance that I'm going to take 5 strokes to get the ball into the hole on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, on 17.
Yeah. Okay, so our famous closing hole, the finishing hole, par 4, 18, 465 yards. This is the one where there's a very famous shoot, right?
Mhm.
That you have to hit it down. And then the hole is a dog right? So you have to
Yes.
hit it down that narrow chute, try to avoid the 2 bunkers on the left, and then there's elevation change coming into the green. There is undulation all around, and those 2 bunkers right around the green as well. 2-tier green with, I believe this one also has a false front, if I'm remembering correctly, slight false front. Not easy by any stretch of the imagination, on the more difficult side as far as Augusta goes. What are you giving yourself here?
I'm going to have to birdie this to win the Masters. I don't see myself birdieing this hole. I think this is unfortunately a par hole. And it's again, one of those things where I think I can birdie maybe 1 out of the 4 days, especially with my fade. I could see myself hitting into that bunker 2 of the days, and I think I can get out. I could save myself, but from there, it's going to be 2 putts. So yeah, I think this is going to be a par hole for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's dangerous, right? For this hole, if you miss anywhere on the approach shot, for most pros, it's 4.5, 5 strokes total, right?
Yeah.
So this one, again, not easy. I think you're going to give yourself a par. I think I have to give myself a bogey. Because this hole as well, there's so much subtle runoff, right? Like the green almost sits elevated by itself a little bit, where it slopes down kind of all around it. And again, my weak point being my chipping if I'm a little bit off, like just to be fair. You ready for your final score? Well, you know it.
So I'm 8 under for the round, which depending on the year,
you have a chance.
Could have given me the green jacket. But that also means that was weather-wise very, very bad week of golf.
I am 8 over on the round, and if that's the average, 32 over on the tournament.
I think the biggest difference, especially because we're playing from 125 out, is how confident are we with our chipping? And I think right now, because that is where your struggle, you were very honest with your assessment of how you would score. That's one area where right now I am feeling a little confident. And also, I think my putting has been pretty decent. And so because of that, that has given me confidence. So I would be top 10 at least most years.
And you know, to that point, my instinct, if we played this game just on instinct, right? Not like looking at it and analyzing it. Yeah, I'd be like, no, of course I'd have a shot at winning, right? Yeah. But if you really look at the nuance of Augusta, right? And like on some of these, it's like, I could see like you chip and then you ping pong, right? And then you just hit a bad one and you're back off the green another 10 yards, right? So that's kind of what I was trying to embrace here, and just kind of hurt my own feelings by giving myself a +8 on the round playing from 125 yards.
Yeah, and obviously like Augusta greens are different, right? Yeah. You mentioned this in the beginning, but they're not the greens we play. They're not even the greens that most pros play week in and week out. And so you being on the wrong side, like I do think, 3 putting is going to happen. And on a lot of those pars, like I expect to hit green in regulation, and it's me 3 putting to a par. And so, yeah, I feel like it's such a beast, the green itself. Now, maybe this won't change your answer, but is there, if it was even shorter, let's say 100 yards, 80 yards, do you think that would change your ability to win the Masters?
I think it would make it worse. Honestly, I think if you said 140 or 150 yards, I actually think I have a better shot.
Because that's like your stock yardage.
Because I have stock yardages there, and because I'm more comfortable with a full 9-iron or even an easy 9-iron, right? Like I'm very comfortable with both of those shots, and I think I will get more gers and not have to take as many, like I'm penalizing myself for having to chip.
For me, if it was 100 or less, I actually do think my chances go up because I have my arm parallel shot.
Right.
And I'm fairly accurate with that. I know the spins, even in greens like this, like I think I can hit it within a 10-yard window. Yeah. And so because of that, I do think my chances go up if it was like 80 yards.
Right.
Like 100, I think it won't improve it by that much. But if it was 80 yards, I think I can definitely win the Masters.
Interesting.
Yeah. But, I would love to kind of hear from our audience. Can you win the green jacket if we are playing from 125 out. I would love to know what your handicap is, maybe like what your strengths are, and if you think you can, score better than 12 under through 4 rounds playing from 125 out. Hey everyone, welcome to the Off Track Podcast, where we talk all things golf from an amateur point of view. I'm Charles. That's Roy. We are two golf-obsessed tech guys, and we are currently working on our own golf company. Make sure to click subscribe or follow on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And also follow us on our socials at Track Golf on Instagram and TikTok.
All right. So this week in golf, or current events in golf, now that we're moving to every other week. So this has been the Tiger Woods show. I mean, he has been showing up left and right, and it saddens me to say, like, not in a good way, right? Like, this is not the Tiger I want to remember. So first, let's start with the less terrible news, which is Tiger Woods replaced Kevin Kisner at the finals of the TGL against LA. First time he had played all year, or all season, I should say. Some of the reasons quoted were he was trying to get ready for the Masters. Part of it was him just saying that he just felt like playing, and he is the owner of Jupiter Links Golf Club, so technically he is allowed to do whatever he wants. But he didn't have a good showing, right? And they ended up losing 9-2, which is not close at all. So 2 questions. One, did you watch it? And then second, do you think Tiger should have just stepped aside and let his team that has been winning up until this point just continue on in the finals?
I did watch parts of it, and then I ended up watching the highlights. It's just hard to watch a sports broadcast these days, especially with 2 kids. It's really tough because he is the product, right? TGL without Tiger, I don't think would have the momentum that it has. Even Tiger just being on the sideline, coaching and reacting to Jupiter Links was just great to watch. However, I am in the camp that he should not have played.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other guys that got them to the position that they are in. Plus, like you said, he didn't have it wasn't a horrible showing though.
Yeah. It's interesting because, to your point, I think for this one, they said the broadcast hit almost 1 million viewers, or maybe it went a little over, but on average, it was like 1 million viewers, which is one of the larger ones, if I remember correctly, for TGL. But he came out afterwards and saying that he wasn't used to the speed, right? Or the cadence, where he felt like he was getting iced, quote unquote, iced out a lot because of the rotation and how they play. But I want to see Tiger play every opportunity that I want. And if Tiger's playing in a tournament now, like, I will find a way to watch at least bits of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Very honestly, I had no desire to watch this one, even knowing that Tiger was going to play. There is something about, like, I want to love the TGL because in theory, it's more fun. And to your point, just getting inside information or inside access to Tiger and all them feels like it should be great. But this wasn't it. Like, there was nothing about this that was interesting to me. And back to your point, yeah, he should have just let his team go on and win. Like, would it have made a material difference? I don't know. LA's been playing well. Yeah. But, it's just, it feels weird that, like, they all got to the finals and then Tiger at the last minute was like, my turn. And then hopped in for a loss.
And to that point that you mentioned earlier, like him not knowing the cadence, there's a shot clock at TGL, and I think he was putting, and I think the clock hit 0, and you get penalized on shots like that. And I think that also just shows that actually playing and just being a coach or being there on the sideline is different, because he should have felt the cadence, but not being in it through the entire season, it absolutely, I think, affected him. And he actually missed a pretty short putt. It was a lip out. And so I think it played into that. And that just further reinforces, I think, both of our thoughts that Tiger, as much as we love him, should not have played.
Yeah. Talking about other things that Tiger shouldn't have been doing, I don't think that Tiger should drive anymore. Because, and I'm sure everybody knows this is no longer new news, but over the weekend, Tiger was arrested for getting into another car crash and then was arrested on suspicion of a DUI, or was charged with a DUI, I should say, rather. Interestingly, blew a 0 on the breathalyzer and did refuse a urine test, if I remember correctly. And then now he's out on bail. I think everybody understands, like, Tiger has had a lot of surgeries. The dude's in a lot of pain. Obviously, he was on some kind of medication, which may or may not, and we don't know, right? Like, there's still news coming out. Yeah. But as soon as this news broke, you and I were obviously talking about it. And then you very astutely said, why don't rich people just hire drivers?
Yeah.
How did you feel hearing that Tiger crashed another car? And it's so sad to say another.
It honestly broke my heart a little bit, because I think Tiger fans, like we have this comeback obsession with Tiger that he is going to put on the cape and perform once more, especially with the Masters coming up. You don't have to win it, but be in contention, just make the cut. And so we have that obsession, and this impairs that comeback. And my immediate reaction, I texted to you, was, why don't they hire drivers? You have the money, right? You don't have to drive. And I don't know why it's always like the greats. Another, I don't know if you watch or follow the UFC, but there's a MMA fighter named John Jones who has had so many run-ins with the police while he was driving. And the entire time, John Jones fans and myself included were yelling, "Get a driver!" And yeah, Tiger again is another one of those people that really need to hire a full-time driver.
I think there's something more than just the driver. I mean, obviously, yes, get the driver, because then at least you're not getting in trouble. What I've started seeing, because I was checking the news earlier today just to see like, hey, is there any other development or anything else that's happened? All conjecture, not the most reputable sites, but now people are saying like, Vanessa Trump, his girlfriend, is like pissed and like, you have to straighten out. Not a reaction that you normally get if your boyfriend has crashed his car. Normally you're like, hey, are you okay? Not, hey, WTF, right? So there's, again, and I don't want to be a person that's just like, talking just from conjecture or what rumors are, but, obviously there's something else going on that is like a known entity, at least amongst his closest circle, that he needs to quote unquote get it together. So all to say, yeah, if I were worth several billions of dollars the way that he is, I mean, I would never drive a car again.
A question that I have for you, though, is at what point does chasing greatness start costing your legacy? Because I feel like this tail end of Tiger's career can potentially harm his legacy. And, going back to John Jones in the UFC and MMA is the greatest of all time, but there's all these legal things. There's all these ethically and bad decisions that he's made that really is chopping into his legacy. At what point does this start to hurt Tiger's legacy?
Now, for those of us that have been following Tiger for a long time, you would have caught some part of Tiger's career. Maybe not the best part, but there was obviously like his meteoric rise, the part where like you just expected him to win, right? And so that level of greatness is just like burned into everybody's brain. And then he had his injuries, he had his whatever, he had his fallout with his first wife. That put a major damper on the perception of Tiger, but he was still doing okay. He had his surgeries, he had his big crash, and then he came back to win the 2019 Masters, right? So it's like, that was the fairy tale. It's like, oh my God, he's going to be able to come back. He's Tiger of old. That I feel like brought him back up. Because if that never happened, I feel like he would just like still be declining. But from the 2019 Masters, again, he's been injured, he's been out. It's like starting to just like chip away again. Unless he goes and wins again, this is just now just going to be a steady decline from here on out, right? Like he's got to do something to bring himself back up. If Tiger retired now, everybody would be disappointed, but he's still remembered as the Tiger of great. Versus if he continues like this, then this is the thing that people remember.
Yeah. A good comparison for me is Michael Jordan, right? He played those years with the Washington Wizards. Yes. And we have brainwashed ourselves and kind of wiped that from our memory.
Yes.
And he was still good. He wasn't the GOAT level when he was in Washington. I feel like the longer this trail end of Tiger's story becomes, it's going to become harder to erase that from our memory. Right. And so, yes, we will remember the greatness that was Tiger, but we're going to remember this tail end a lot more as well. So I feel like as a fan of Tiger's, I think he needs to close the chapter on him playing golf. Play in the TGL, sure, but I think he can do like fun sort of exhibition type of golf involvement. He still has massive pull to grow the game of golf, even though you don't want the game to grow. But in terms of, I think, playing these comebacks, I think he needs to close that chapter. And I think this is going to get us a lot of upset people on social media and YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm probably on the same page as you and also on the same page as the people on YouTube. Do I want to see Tiger continue? Do I want to see him achieve greatness again? Like, yes, who doesn't, right? Like he's the everybody's childhood hero. Even if you were a grown adult when Tiger was winning, he's still your childhood hero, like, as it relates to golf. But I kind of agree with you. Like at this point, like play the TGL, be fun, be accessible, be like the fun personality Tiger that's come out in the last few years.
Well, as always, today's episode is brought to you by Track Golf, the training system designed to help you practice like the pros. The Track Spray shows you exact strike patterns on turf or grass. It also allows you to do drills just like the pros that you wouldn't dream of doing with alignment sticks. And the Blueprint, it helps you build structure into every session. Together, they take the guesswork out of practice so you can actually improve faster. Find out more at trackgolf.com. That is traqgolf.com.
Awesome. All right. So for our last fun segment, we had a lot of people talk about our how to break 80 statistics, a lot more about how to break 90 statistics. And then we were talking about how to break 100. And we were jokingly like, well, are there even statistics? Isn't it just like get better at golf? Turns out there are though, right? Because I did a lot of research about what it takes to actually break 100. And it's not actually as prevalent as a lot of people think, but it's also not as difficult as people think, right? So what handicap do you think you need to be to break 100 regularly?
To shoot a 99 is plus, like 27, right? And so I would think that if you are like a 25 handicap or lower, you should be breaking 100.
Yeah. So 25 handicap breaks 100 about half the time. Which makes sense, right? So because 25, your handicap is like what your quote unquote best rounds. A 20 handicap, they're expected to break 100 significantly more. I believe it's 90 something percent of the time, right? So breaking 100 regularly is being somewhere between a 20 and 25 handicap, which at that point, yeah, it's not the best. And again, if you listen to YouTube and Instagram golfers, they're all like, yeah, it doesn't matter. But there are a set of averages that you need to hit from a statistics standpoint to be able to break 100 regularly. So we're going to play this game again. I'm going to give you the stat and you have to guess what the average needs to be in order to break 100. And then I'm going to tell you what the average 20 handicap and 25 handicap is, right? So like right around where it happens.
This is going to be so interesting because there are so many different ways to break 100. And so
yeah,
I think it'll be very, very interesting. More interesting actually than because breaking 80 was kind of like math. At breaking 90, there's a little bit more ways to break 90, but it's still like there's set ranges right now. And those numbers came up very quickly for me. Those stat numbers.
Yeah.
Breaking 100, I'm actually a little worried. Am I going to be able to think fast enough to come up with an answer?
Yeah, but to your point, right? It's for breaking 100. Breaking 100 is not about hitting the statistics exactly. It's about eliminating things, right? And yeah. we'll get that to that as well, right? Like, what do you have to eliminate, right? But for the sake of it, and this is just an average, right? So if you play this average across the board, you'll break 100. So starting off, what is our green in regulation percentage recommended on average?
Recommended? Because I would think you can break 100 hitting 0 green in regulation.
Absolutely, you
could.
And
so I would say 0, but I don't know. Is it recommended to hit 2?
Yeah, actually, it's 3, right? So 2 to 3. And there was somebody that commented on our breaking 90 video that was like, I hit 0 furs and 0 gurs and I still broke 90. Well, yes, but again, that is not average, right? So an average 25 handicap will get 1.8 greens in regulation per round. That's about 10%.
That I don't know. I don't know why that seems really high.
2? 1 point something 2? I mean, sure. But you got to assume that, they're not playing the longest tees. So on a par 3,
that's true.
There's a decent shot at getting a green in regulation.
Okay.
A 20 handicap will actually only get 1 more. It's 3, 17%. Fairways hit.
Again, I would think you don't have to hit any fairways.
Again, true.
I'm trying to remember the last time I got close to hitting 100, and I don't remember it. Now there were a few times where I think right after my first, when I hadn't golfed for 3-4 months and my driver was completely broken, I think I flirted with it, but it's been so long. I'm going to say again, averages, recommendation, 1.
It's actually on average, it gets a little higher. And again, I'm looking at this from a slightly different lens, right? Which is, what does a 25 and a 20 average handicap get?
Yeah.
Turns out there's no material improvement on fairways hit. from the average 25 handicap to an average 20 handicap. And
I could believe that.
You're right. And it's sitting in like the 40% range.
Really?
Yeah. Again, averages, right?
I'm surprised that a 20 handicap can hit 40% of the fairways.
What it doesn't say is how far it went, right? So there's so many other variables here to your point, right? Where it's like,
are they counting it where they top the ball and it rolls 30 yards forward, but it's straight? Is that a fairway?
That's a
regulation?
fairway. Yeah, that's a fairway hit. The scorecard doesn't tell you how pretty it was. It just tells you what you got.
I guess so.
But yeah, that would count. So yeah, that one's a little weird, but it's not to that point, right? Again, it's not like they're getting that far. They're not hitting it that deep. They're not getting a lot out of it, right? And they're not really improving that much either. What about putts per round?
Oh man, I'm gonna think that they're hitting like 2.5 putts per hole. I would say it's like 45 to 50 putts a round.
That's a little high.
Okay,
right? Because I mean, if you're at 50,
20 handicappers, 25 handicappers. I'm so sorry.
No, so this one was a little weird from a stats percentage because supposedly self-reported. A 25 handicap average hits around 34 putts per round. I looked at that and I was like, there's no way that's right.
That seems low.
Low, right. So I did a little bit more research and it looks like on average, they're around 38 putts, right? So if they're in a little bit worse than two putting, still getting mostly two putts, which you have to assume, there's probably a lot of variance there. But this also goes to the whole, like, what does it actually take to break 100? And this was very similar to 90 as well, right? You can't be a bad putter to break 100. Like, this is one of the skills that you have to shore up first. Scrambling.
I don't expect them to scramble and hit par or better on any holes.
Yeah. This one was in like the single digits, right?
Okay.
So, and what I found was actually really interesting, which is not necessarily that it was scrambling, but can they get up and down a few times? Right.
Okay.
So they may have taken a few shots to get close to the green. And from there, if they can get up and down, so not necessarily to save par, maybe to save a bogey, right?
Okay.
It actually does a lot for them. So if they can get up and down about 3 times a round, then it'll provide a material improvement to them.
I could buy that.
And then here's our favorite one, which is, it was very telling with breaking 90 and breaking 80. How many penalty strokes do you think is allowed? And or what do you think that how many penalty strokes does an average 20 and 25 handicap get?
Man, a 25 handicap, I would think you get like 5-6 penalties. And then a 20 handicapper, I would think gets like 3 to 4.
Very close. Well, actually, yes, you got it on that last guess. So an average 25 handicap gets about 4 2/3 penalty strokes. An average 20 gets 3 penalty strokes around. Right. And remember, we said if you're breaking 90 on average, you can take 1 penalty stroke around. Right. So this is where you start cutting down a lot of strokes. Right. Because that between 90 and 100, we're saying the difference is about 3 or 4 strokes. That's almost all the strokes right there. Right. So this is where you're starting to see a lot of improvement in score. You just aren't taking any penalty strokes. And then how many double bogeys do you think are happening for an average 20 handicap and a 25 handicap?
Well, I'm also expecting them to hit a lot of triple bogeys. So, because just math wise, I would say that they're hitting like 9 to 10 double bogeys, but with triples in mind and them still having to break 100, I'd probably like shave off a few there, like 8 double bogeys per round.
Average 25 handicap is getting about 9 double bogeys.
Okay.
Average 20 handicap is getting about 6.5 double bogeys. So that's it. That's the rest of it. So to your point, there's so many ways to make 100, but the majority of it comes down to assuming that the putting is okay. You're somewhat decent around the green because most people are eating their strokes on blow-up holes and penalties. I did a lot of deep research, and what it comes down to is there's 3 main tips to break 100. Do you know what they are? Any guesses?
3 main. These are tips?
Tips are the best advice you can give to break 100.
I think as long as you're just advancing the ball, because I think for people that are in that range, you don't always advance the ball. So if you are materially advancing the ball closer to the hole, I think that would just be the big plus.
100%. That is actually one of the best tips. And that is where they're eating a lot of these like random double bogey strokes. So The first thing is you actually have to advance the ball on every single swing. No chunks, no tops, right? The second is no penalties off of the tee box, especially.
Oh, but I feel like that's where they eat most of the penalties is off the tee box.
Right. Well, I think what that's saying is if you're going to hit a driver and get a penalty, don't hit your driver. If you want to break 100, not if you want to play a fun round. If you want to break 100, your driver is always putting you in positions that you're taking penalty strokes, don't hit your driver. Or you're better off hitting a 7-iron 100 yards shorter than you are hitting your driver and take a penalty stroke. And then the third one is probably exactly what you think it will be because it's the same at every level.
The putting.
Yeah. You cannot 3-putt, especially from inside 30 feet. So you have to be good at putting no matter what to get any semblance of scoring.
No, I think putting makes a huge, huge difference. But I'm just trying to remember like when I first started golf, and that's when my first goal was to break that 100. There were absolutely 3-putts for me. And I think the reason why I was able to 3-putt and make other errant shots and hit more penalties is probably because I just drove always a lot further, even though I had a slicing issue. And because of that, I think I would have like 6-7 penalty strokes around. But the key thing was I was still advancing the ball like 280, even though it was a slice. Yeah. And so I think that definitely played a big role. But yeah, my putting was horrible. I mean, there's a reason why I putt arm lock today. My putting was always horrible. But yeah, advancing the ball is a huge deal because if you chunk or if you top and the ball goes 2-3 yards, like that's essentially a penalty, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, if I could like summarize this and maybe not the exact way, right? But if we're going back to like, hey, what is the best way or the fastest way to get to being able to break 100? It's not course management, but it's like, don't do stupid things that it's going to end up being a penalty shot, like you said, right? But the other thing is work on your ball striking. It doesn't matter how far you hit it, and it doesn't necessarily matter what shape you hit it, right? Yeah. As long as you can find somewhat of the face, doesn't even have to be the whole face. You can hit it thin and have it be a worm burner that never gets a foot off the ground, but that'll still get you closer to breaking 100 than these random unintentional trick shots, where the ball, you take a full swing and the ball only goes a foot, right? So
yeah. And I think I absolutely agree with that because again, thinking back to when I was trying to break hundreds, I hit a lot of chunky shots. And I think the moment when I felt like I was a better golfer was when that number just got smaller and smaller and smaller. And honestly, even as a single handicapper, like I will chunk 1 or 2 shots around. Just being completely honest, but being able to eliminate that still allows you to progress the ball like majority of the time. Yeah. And so I think that is very important. And honestly, that's the reason why we created the track spray, is to help you understand what that turf impact looks like. So a little plug again, but check out trackgolf.com and you'll see how that's going to help you make better impact with your clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. I was laughing because I was going to say the same thing, but you said something interesting. You still chunk the ball. Obviously, I still chunk the ball. I still thin the ball. But there's also like severity, right? Which is your chunks are not anywhere close to what a 25 handicap's chunks look like, right? Like they'll dig like a small ditch, and the ball will maybe not have moved at all. Your chunks are like, you lost 10 yards off of the shot. Right? Like it's not as big of a deal. Yeah, but it does make a difference.
Yeah, I would add also from a tip standpoint, it wasn't on your list, but I think chipping around the green, never use your 60 degree. Like you don't even need to use your 56 degree. Like at that level, I think you should play your pitching wedge or your 9-iron even and just chip it a lot like farther from the hole because it'll roll out, right? I think there was an ego play for me, even when I wasn't breaking 100, that I needed to have wedges and be able to, because I thought that's what made you a good chipper, is being able to hit your 60 degree. Today, I hit my 60 degree maybe like 3 times, only when that loft and elevation of the ball and the spin is required, right? And so I would say, like keep the ego at home. Don't use your 60 degree. Don't use your 56. Go for something that's easier to, make contact, and even use your putter around the green because that will progress the ball closer to the hole more often than you trying to chip it.
Right. I mean, there's that famous saying, your worst putt is never going to be worse than your worst chip.
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, unless there's a sprinkler head in the way, like I use the Texas wedge way more often than I want to admit. But most of the time, it ends up being not that bad. Oh man, makes me want to go play now. All right.
But Masters Week, I always want to play.
That's true. All right. Well, like Charles said, we'll be coming back every other week moving forward. But in the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. And check out our Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Track Golf. Also, don't forget to check out our website, trackgolf.com. That's enough getting off track. May your mulligans be many and your 3 putts be few.